Hi, Miss Marion here. We are doing Unit 2, Lesson 12. Go ahead and turn back to page 192. Let's read the I can statements. I can recognize the 3D shape, cylinder, cone, rectangular, prism, and sphere. I know that volume is the amount of space contained inside a three-dimensional figure. Go ahead and write yourself a sentence, how you feel, and give yourself a number. 1, I don't remember. 2, I kind of remember it. 3, I do remember it. And then 4, I can teach it to my friend. All right, let's go ahead and turn to page 103. And you don't have this picture, so you're going to have to look at this picture, okay? The smaller container holds about 200 beans. Estimate how many beans the larger container holds. And then you can go ahead and write the sentence, I believe that the bigger container holds blank beans because blank. So go ahead and write that sentence on page 103 about this picture. So pause, go ahead and do that, and then come back to me. All right, so the bigger container holds about, so I'm going to say about 1,000 beans. And so I'm going to kind of go through that as far as how I did that. So I know that this one is 200, right? So that kind of goes there. And let's do another 200. Another 200, and another 200. So if we add all of those together, it's not exactly 1,000, but it's about 1,000 beans. So this is to get our brain thinking again about math and logic thinking kind of stuff. And we're going to be talking about things kind of like the container. It holds 200 beans. We're talking about volume. Volume is where you take clay and you kind of shove it inside a three-dimensional object. This way we can actually look at it as far as with beans. So how many beans are in there? About 1,000 beans. So on page 103, I'm going to show you some containers, and then we'll be asked to answer some questions about it. So we're going to kind of estimating some things. So it'll make a little bit more sense once I show you the pictures. But again, we're kind of doing association with different things. So all of these are what are called rectangular prisms. All the sides are made out of either squares or rectangular. That's why it's called a rectangular prism. So it's a three-dimensional object made out of rectangles. And so if the pasta box holds 8 cups of rice, how much rice would you need to fill in the other rectangular prisms? So we're going to be filling in the pudding box, how that associates with it, and then also the chicken stock. So sorry, I had to kind of fix that. So we're doing the pudding and chicken. How many cups would each one go ahead and do? So pause and answer that question, and then go ahead and come back to me. So the pudding box, I'm going to say it's probably around 1.5 cups. And the reason why I say that is notice how the bottom of the pudding container is not the same width as the pasta container. So it's not just half. I'm thinking more as far as around a third. So if you had around 1.5 cups, then that's actually really good. Let's look at the chicken stock. So the chicken stock, look how it is. It is as tall as the pasta one, but it's also not as skinny. So if we look at all the different kind of rectangles that make up the chicken stock, I'm thinking it's probably going to be around 4 cups of rice. All right, let's go ahead and look at these cylinders. We have different cylinders. We have a tuna can, rolled oats, and a pumpkin. If the pumpkin holds 15 fluid ounces of rice, how much do the tuna can and the rolled oats contain? So go ahead, pause, and again, you're going to write the sentence underneath this area. So I believe the tuna holds blank cups, and I believe the rolled oats container holds blank cups. Go ahead and write those sentences underneath number 2. So pause and answer that question, and then come back to me. All right, let's go ahead and look at this. So if we look at the pumpkin can, it has 15 fluid ounces. So the tuna can, the bottoms are kind of like the same. The tuna is a little bit bigger, but it's really kind of squashed down, right? And so it's not going to be half. So if we kind of take it and we go, okay, 15 divided by 2, That's about 7.5. I don't think it's going to be half. I think it's going to actually be smaller than that. So I think it's going to be probably around, let's change the color, about 5.5 cups. So if you had something around there, that totally works. The rolled oats, let's kind of think about that. So the bottoms are not the same at all. And so it's actually going to go ahead and be bigger. And so the pumpkin holds 15 fluid ounces. So the rolled oats are going to actually be bigger. So if we did double it, it'll be probably around 30 fluid ounces. And then the rolled oats is a little bit bigger than double. So I'm going to kind of do double and a half. So I'm going to say it's probably around 45 fluid ounces, cups of fluid ounces, as far as where the rolled oats will actually be. All right, here are two cones. So if the small cone holds 2 fluid ounces of rice, how much does the large waffle cone hold? And again, you're going to have, I believe the large waffle cone holds blank cups. So go ahead and pause, answer that question, and then come back to me. All right, so let's kind of look at the dimensions on there. So notice how the bottom, they're actually kind of the same. So it's like here and here. The top is a little bit bigger as far as the circles, right? So I'm thinking probably it's going to be around 3 fluid ounces of rice would actually be the waffle cone. So instead of being 2 as a smaller one, it's going to be around 3. All right, the last picture is golf ball and baseball. So the golf ball, if it were hollow, it would hold 0.2 cups of water. And then we're looking at the baseball, if it was hollow, how much would it actually hold? So again, you're going to have, I believe the baseball holds blank cups, and then kind of explain why. That needs to be written down on page 104. So go ahead and pause, answer that question, and then come back to me. All right, so we have this circle for the golf ball, and that's 0.2. We have this circle for the baseball, and it's going to be, I don't know, so it's going to be more than just like double. It's kind of be almost like times 4 or times 5. I actually think it's kind of in between 4 and 5 as far as how bigger it actually is. So I'm going to say it's going to be about 0.9 cups of water compared to the other one. So as far as looking at the volume, again, the volume is to kind of taking that clay and sticking into a 3-dimensional object. We have fluid ounces, which are in quarts, cups, liters, milliliters. And then we have cubic feet, which is cubic meters, and cubic yards. So cubic means a 3-dimensional. So it's a 3-dimensional measurement of feet, a 3-dimensional measurement of meters, a 3-dimensional measure of yards. So again, volume is kind of taking that clay and putting it into that 3-dimensional object. That's what this whole activity was about. All right, so let's go ahead and turn to page 104. And on number 1, it says shapes. What shapes are the faces of each of the object here? So example, a cube has 6 faces, and they're called squares, right? So look at A, B, C, and D, and we're going to talk about how many faces there are and what kind actually makes up all of these 3-dimensional objects. And then answering that at the same time, what would be the base of that object? And so go ahead and answer those questions, pause and answer those, and then come back to me. All right, let's look at the top one. We have the pudding box, right? This pudding box, if you look at it, it is made out of different rectangles, right? So they're rectangles, and there's 6 of them, right? And the base would be a rectangle. All right, let's look at the cone. So the cone has a circle, and it has one of them, okay, and that's kind of the bottom. And then if you kind of cut along the cone, it actually looks something like this, and there's one of them. So the base is going to be that circle. Let's go ahead and look at the cylinder or the pumpkin, right? So this is a cylinder. What is it made out of? It actually has circles, right? And it has 2 of them. And then if you open up a cylinder and laid it flat, it's actually a rectangle, is the inner part, and there's one of them. And its base is usually the circle. And then a sphere actually has one curved surface. So if you kind of cut along there and like lay it flat, it's just going to kind of be this surface curvature kind of area. It's really kind of hard to draw, but and that would and does it really have a base that it kind of sits on? Well, no, not really, because of that curvature. If you kind of have a ball and you try to set it, and it kind of rolls around, right? So it really doesn't have a quote-unquote base. On number 3, it says here is the method for sketching a cylinder. You draw 2 ovals, connect the edges, and then you also do the dotted parts as far as what will kind of sit behind as far as looking at that cylinder. So go ahead and sketch a few different sizes of cylinders. So short, tall, narrow, one that's sitting on its side. We're going to be using a lot of cylinders. So go ahead and try that out on page 104 underneath 3. Number 3, go ahead and sketch some cylinders. All right, here are my sketches. So I did one kind of like a tuna can. I did one skinny and tall, and also did one on its side. So make sure you know how to go ahead and sketch a cylinder. So on page 105, we're going to look at the Are You Ready for More? A soccer ball is a polyhedron with 12 black pentagonal faces and 20 white hexagonal faces. How many edges in total are on the polyhedron? So go ahead and think about it. This is more of just kind of to make you kind of think about it. And then, so pause, answer that question, and then come back to me. All right, so let's kind of think about it. So with my pentagon, so I drew a pentagon, I have 5 edges and there's 12 of them. So all the edges total would be 60. With my hexagon, there are 6 edges and there's 20 of them, so there's 120 edges. So if I want to think about it, if I add all of those together, there's going to be 180 edges total. But remember that if we have 2 of those faces together, there's actually 2 things kind of coming into one and making one edge. So I need to go ahead and divide all of this by 2, and that would leave me 90 edges. All right, so today, as we kind of remember, we're looking at volume. We're looking at things. We're looking at a cone, a cylinder, a rectangular prism, and also a sphere. This is kind of introduction to volume and what it actually entails. So again, it's kind of like taking clay and shoving it inside that 3-dimensional object. And we're going to be talking more about volume and how it works throughout the rest of this unit. And so this is kind of what we're doing at this time. So let's go ahead and turn back to page 192 and read our I can statements. I can recognize the 3D shapes, a cylinder, a cone, rectangular prism, and a sphere. And then I know that volume is the amount of space contained inside a 3-dimensional figure. Write yourself a sentence about how you felt after this lesson. Give yourself a number. So 1, I'm still confused. 2, I kind of got it. 3, I did get it. And then 4, I can teach it to my friend. Make sure you do your practice problems. So for lesson 12, and it can be found in Canvas. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye.